Ouais. Quoi? Tu as muté. Hello and welcome to a social media live. Today is World Diabetes Day and our topic is diabetes. If you have never watched a live before at the WHO, you can ask your question on the topic of diabetes. If you're on Twitter, please use the hashtag AskWHO. Otherwise, you can leave your comments in the questions in the comments section. I'm joined today by three guests. Let me introduce the first one, which is Lindsay Mitkoli. She's the Director, Patient Engagement and Knowledge Mobilization at Diabetes Action Canada. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, thanks for having me, folks.
My second guest is Dr. Manudip Archaya, who is a diabetologist and physician at the Dr. Mohan Diabetes Specialist Center in Kolkata, India. Nice having you.
Thank you, my privilege.
And finally, our guest, who was supposed to be Guy, couldn't make it today, but he is replaced by Sanjana Marpatka, Technical Officer, Department of Non-Communicable Diseases, Rehabilitation and Disability at the WHO. Hello, Sanjana.
Hello, thank you so much for having me on this very important day.
Thank you all for joining us. Let me start with the first question for you, Sanjana. What is diabetes?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Walter. Well, diabetes is a condition where the body can't use sugar from food for energy because it can't make enough insulin or can't use the insulin well. And this causes sugar levels in the blood to rise. And over time, high blood sugar can lead to serious health problems if it isn't managed properly. So more than 95% of people with diabetes live with a form called type 2 diabetes. And you can lower your risk of type 2 diabetes through a healthy diet, regular physical activity, maintaining a healthy body weight, and avoiding tobacco products. And some people with type 2 diabetes can be treated with changes to their diet and lifestyle, but many people require medicine. And there's also another form known as type 1 diabetes, which is not preventable. And everyone with type 1 diabetes needs to take medicine called insulin to stay alive.
Thank you. So you mentioned that there's two types of diabetes, and how are people affected by diabetes?
Absolutely. I mean, diabetes comes with a variety of different challenges. It affects you in your day to day, and I know we're going to hear a lot more from Manodeep and Lindsay today on exactly that. But something that I wanted to highlight is just this morning, actually, WHO released new estimates that more than 800 million people are living with diabetes worldwide now. That is just a striking figure to me, that more than 800 million people, these numbers have quadrupled over the last 3 decades, uh, have to figure out how to navigate their day to day with a condition that it can be as complex as diabetes.
Lindsay, I believe you are living with type 1 diabetes. What has your experience been like living with diabetes?
So I didn't have diabetes for 25 years of my life. I had no family history. Nobody in my family really had firsthand experience with diabetes, let alone type 1 diabetes. So the diagnosis was definitely a shock. I remember studying diabetes in school. I have 2 university degrees in healthcare and science related topics. And thinking, okay, I understand what it's like for people to live with type 1. They can do anything they want to as long as they take insulin. And then I was diagnosed with diabetes. Not to say that insulin isn't like a miracle medication for many of us. It allows us to continue living our lives, but I didn't realize how much extra work living with diabetes is. It's extra mental work of always figuring out the choices you need to make for your medication, the choices you need to make for your diet, for your lifestyle, but also a lot more physical work of sometimes you give a little bit too much medication and then you have to take sugar to ensure that you stay alive and you're doing well. Sometimes you give too little, you have to go for a walk. And it's a lot extra financial work as well. And it's not just about the insulin when you live with diabetes, it's also about testing your blood sugar. And to test your blood sugar, you have traditional devices, but there's also technology that really helps us live better lives, like continuous glucose monitors, pumps, etc. So it's to wrap it all up, Walter, diabetes is the club I never wanted to enter, but the community is something I wouldn't give back, and it's been both lovely and a lot of work.
Thank you for sharing that. And you mentioned insulin
Yes.
twice. Could you maybe explain for those who don't know what insulin is?
Absolutely. So today is November 14th. And the reason today is World Diabetes Day is because it is the birthday of Dr. Banting, a doctor that a Canadian doctor. I'm joining you all from Canada today, so I have to mention. Dr. Banting discovered insulin and was able to create this medication that normally our bodies create our own insulin. And insulin, I always say, is like a little vehicle in our blood that allows us to move sugar out of our blood and into our cells so that we can use the sugar to do everything we need to do. Everything from our brain functioning to us breathing to playing sports to traveling, having children, all of the things that we do in life. For those of us with diabetes, we either don't have enough of that vehicle or any at all. So, what Dr. Banting and his team did is that they were able to create insulin outside of the human body so that people like myself are able to take it when our body stops making it so that we can still use the sugar to do all of those things, live, function, have a family, etc.
Thanks. So to all our viewers, if you joined late today, we're talking about diabetes. It's World Diabetes Day. If you have any questions about diabetes, please put them in the comment section, or if you're on X, please use the hashtag AskWHO. Manudip, you're also living with diabetes. Could you tell us about your experience?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for asking this. I'm on the other pole. I'm type 2 diabetic, unlike Lindsay. So, incidentally, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes almost 5 years back. At that time, I was in Dubai. I was working there. In the month of September itself, I was diagnosed, and when I was diagnosed, my glycosylated hemoglobin, that is the last 3 months average sugar, was something around 7.1. Did I have any symptoms of the diabetes? No, unfortunately, I didn't have, but it was just found on the regular checkup. And if you ask me how I was feeling that moment, it was it was overwhelming because I knew by this time, being a diabetologist as well, I knew by that time that yes, that relentless journey starts in my life. And I have to be reticent and I have to be perseverant of taking care of this disease throughout my life. And I was expecting this because I have a strong family history. My mom was diabetic and I was obese as well. So, but somehow since then, I was pretty much compliant with my medications and checkups. So, but still, it is at times, though I will not say it's a roller coaster ride, but still I say that it creates a great toll of my life, especially this mental well-being and social well-being. Mental well-being, why I'm talking about this, because it is because we know the term called diabetes distress. Now, these diabetes distress stems from not only from the disease of the person who is suffering, but also from the data. Nowadays, we are in an era of continuous glucose monitoring. As Lindsay has correctly pointed out, continuous glucose monitors, insulin pumps, and all. So there are plethoras of data. So fortunately, I also keep on attaching sensors frequently. So a lot of data are taking how is my sugar is fluctuating, and I'm keeping very busy in the clinic. Sometimes I forget to take my meals on time, and then the work stress in the clinic as well as at home. So all these are taking a very good toll of my life, both physical and mental and social. Why I'm talking about social? Because in a country like us in India, the diabetes is considered to be a big stigma. So people are not allowed to talk about this diabetes in open forum fluently. So if I go to these social get-togethers, the occasions, carnivals and all, I have to be careful whether no one should see my senses, so no one should take that no one should see that I'm taking medicines and all. So it is overwhelming, and but it is not a roller coaster ride because I'm a type 2 and I'm quite compliant with my medicines and checkups.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's very important to talk about this also so openly. And you talked a little bit about preconceptions and stigma around diabetes. And what has your experience been there, both with individuals, but maybe also in the with healthcare providers? And how can we address preconceptions of diabetes? Manoj.
Yeah. Preconceptions, see, if I divide preconceptions into two parts, that is preconceptions focused on the healthcare providers and the preconceptions focused on the society, the patients. So, unfortunately, there are a lot of preconceptions, especially in India. You will be startled to know that in an era like this, we even still the doctors, there are few doctors who also believe that why do I check my blood sugar so frequently if I don't have any symptoms? Why will I take insulin? Let the sugar rise. Let my glycosylated hemoglobin process beyond 9, 10, and all. Then I can think of taking insulin. And why will I check the target organ damage? Why will I do my retina scan? Why will I do my ankle brachial index means Dopplers, the kidney function tests and all? I'm doing fine. I don't have any symptoms. Why will I check all this to my patients? And then the preconceptions stems out of the patients, which is also horrible. But nowadays, there are a lot of buzz about this diabetes remission, and then the majority of the patients have this notion of this idea that yes, I can have diabetes remission. In fact, the patients believe that anybody has diabetes can be reversed or can have remission, which is practically not possible. So that's one of the preconception. And then about the insulin, that oh, doctor has advised me insulin, that means that is the end of my life. Doctor has advised me insulin, if I start taking insulin I may lose my potency. Even the husbands are telling their wives not to take insulin. She might die. So this type of the preconceptions or the false belief or the myths, misconceptions about the disease, diabetes per se, and these insulins and all still hovering rampantly in our country. And so far as how to get rid of this, in fact, it has got an immense role by this diabetes self-management education and support. Diabetes self-management education and support, and then these diabetes educators, the awareness, much more awareness campaigns are needed about this diabetes, because there are a lot of sources of the sources from the social medias who are also garnering informations, but it is really astonishing to see that how far these informations are authentic, correct. So people are misguided, whom to listen, whom to believe. So being a healthcare providers, I think we have enough responsibility. Say for just giving an example of diabetes remission. Now the people need to be aware of what is diabetes remission, who are the candidates who can achieve diabetes remissions, what are the prerequisites of diabetes remission, so that these patients, people with diabetes, do not have an unexpected or these unrealistic expectations about whether they can achieve diabetes remissions or not. Similarly with the insulin, lot of false belief and misconceptions are there. So the And another factor which is very important in our country in India, is the social determinants of health. Means the accessibility of this insulin, the products, the knowledge, the products are available, the knowledge are not there. The healthcare providers are not properly updated, and trained. So I think this is a holistic approach of all these healthcare providers, the print medias, electronics medias, social medias, the state, the government, and the non-governmental organizations. Too much focus to be given. You know, the staggering statistics which I came to know at the beginning, that that the quantum of the diabetic populations in India right now, as per by the WHO, has said. And the thing is, I'm belonging from a country where the NCD projections, as per the ICMR India study, which shows that right now we have 100 million diabetic patients and 136 million pre-diabetic patients. So total amount of total patients of diabetes and pre-diabetes is 236 million, and it is increasing exponentially.
If I can I
Yeah,
jump
go
in?
ahead, please. Yes, please.
I'd like to jump in on zoom us out a little bit, because I think Manadeep gave some really excellent examples of what preconceptions look like at the community level. But let's take insulin as an example. I think one of the things that we need to talk about more and tackle in a different way and in more creative ways is that diabetes, or its prescriptions of whatever medications you need to take, are not moral decisions. It's not a moral diagnosis. It's not a moral prescription. But in society, whether in India, in Canada, I'm Albanian, in Albania, or everywhere in between, we have this almost unspoken agreement that insulin is a moral failure, diabetes is a moral failure, and we have to put shame and blame on not just the person with diabetes, but everyone around them, their husband, their wife, their family, their employer, their children, their parents, because if only they just did a little bit better, then you wouldn't have morally failed. Now, do I absolutely agree that that means that we need to educate patients, we need to educate the physicians, the nurses, the people in the that hold the power in the healthcare system? Absolutely. But I also think that this is where we need to get creative about the engagement of people with diabetes. So, my day job is doing patient engagement and diabetes research at Diabetes Action Canada. And I say diabetes is my full-time job. This is just the job I do Monday to Friday. And one of the things that we do is we ask, how can we do something with people with diabetes instead of for people with diabetes? And that is really important to ask when it comes to education and destigmatization. No one understands what it's like until they're the ones either with the diagnosis or it's their loved ones that have the diagnosis. So we need to then ask, okay, what are the either stigmas you're struggling the most with, or what did you wish you knew that you didn't know when you got diagnosed? And then how can people like an organization like the WHO or Diabetes Action Canada connect the dots between people who have that academic expertise, the caregiving expertise, but also the lived expertise to create better resources, better education, and better awareness?
I want to get into the questions that we got from our audience, and one of them is touching upon the points that you just mentioned. Ryan is asking, all my parents' children have diabetes, including me. How is that possible? Is that hereditary, or do you have something to say to that? Maybe Sanjana or Lindsay.
So I always like to say that diabetes is the disease of more questions than answers. So I'm going to preface that with it's very frustrating, but there are more questions than answers. We're working on figuring out more answers to questions like this. Is diabetes genetically passed down? For the longest time, we used to think that type 1 was the genetic type of diabetes, and type 2 was just the one that if you went for a walk and you had some more vegetables, then all would be fine. Now we have people that are working, like I said, they have expertise in the research, and they've been working really hard for decades to figure out, well, is that really the case? We have some evidence that says, for a very small amount of people with type 1, it might be genetically passed down, but we're not quite sure how that works yet. And for the flip side too, we have some evidence that says, if you have type 2 in several generations of your family, there might be something that would increase the risk for your children in the future. Now, these are might. I really want to stress the might because, like I said, the answers are really tough to get at with diabetes. So more questions than answers, but stay tuned because there's people doing really important work. And once that data is out, we'll be working with people with diabetes to communicate those results to the larger community.
Then I have another tricky question. A lot of people are asking about reversing diabetes or reversing pre-diabetes. Is that possible? Sanjana, maybe. Yes, or?
Manadeep had brought up remission, so I would, give him the floor.
Please, Manadeep.
Please go ahead. Me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. This diabetes reversal. I think remission is the correct term rather than the reversal. And the thing is, there are a lot of buzz about remission. What does remission says? Remission says that my metabolic parameters should be normal, and I should be devoid of medications. Some authorities says that for the next 3 months, and some authorities says for the next 1 year. So my fasting blood sugar should be less than 125, or rather 100, and my postprandial sugar will be less than 140, and my glycosylated hemoglobin, the 3 months average sugar, should be less than 5.7. And this can be achieved without any medication, and that can be sustained for a period of 3 months to 1 year. So then when that person is called that the patient diabetes is reversed or the remission has taken place. Now there are certain prerequisites. Does all patients develop diabetes remission? No. There are certain. What are those criteria? It has been seen that the study says that the people whose BMI is high, so there's a high chance of developing diabetes remission. Those whose C-peptide means the insulin reserve inside the pancreas. If the C-peptide level is still quite a good amount, so there is high chance of this diabetes reversal. And then the HbA1c, glycosylated hemoglobin, if it is too much high and that cannot be controlled for a longer period of time, the diabetes reversal is possible. And the last but not the least is the duration of diabetes. The study says that the first 5 to 6 years from the onset of the diabetes diagnosis is vital to achieve this diabetes remission. Now, unfortunately, what is happening is a lot of startups, tech giants and all, they are coming up with all these 800 kilocalorie diets per day and all, and having with a 0% fat in the pancreas, 0% fat in the liver, the metabolic state and all. The patients are told that you are now completely got rid of your diabetes, enjoy your life, do whatever you want and all. Unfortunately, what is happening is these patients, after say 1, 2, or 3 years, are landing up with re-remission, which is dangerous. Re-remission means they're again converted to the diabetic population, and their liver function test is deranged, their lipid profile has deranged, and then it is quite difficult to attain a eumetabolic state or a normal glycemic control of the normal cholesterol level after attaining re-remission. So therefore, there should be a realistic expectations based on the science that who can achieve or who can't achieve the diabetes remission.
I'm going to just jump in with a couple of added points there because, like I said earlier, diabetes is complicated. So what Manadeep just shared is a type 2 specific, pardon me, type 2 specific pattern and possibility. For those of us with type 1 diabetes, unfortunately, we can't go edit, undo, or we can't really have a certain lifestyle or diet that will help us reduce our insulin dependency, because it's a survival question. The other thing I'll add, and it's just to add nuance to Manadeep's answer there, is that a lot of these fad diets, or not necessarily evidence-based solutions that are being marketed towards people with type 2 diabetes, the marketing is always based on that moral question of, if only you just ate 800 calories a day and then you can enjoy your life, because you can't enjoy it now that you have diabetes. And I just want to bring us back to, this is an and equation for anyone with diabetes. You have diabetes and you can live a good life, and you can be well, and you can be healthy. That's true whether you have type 2, type 1, gestational diabetes, which is a type of diabetes that you have when you're pregnant, or even if it's pre-diabetes. None of those, again, are moral diagnoses, and you can live a healthy and good life, even if you have any type of diabetes.
Great. I was about to ask you about the different types of diabetes, because that's a question we get asked a lot. So maybe if you could repeat that just one more time for our viewers.
Absolutely. So type 1 diabetes, that's the type of diabetes where your body has a very hard time making enough or any insulin for you to live and survive. That's the one that's not reversible, and we're the most confused about that one, on why it happens and what triggers it. Type 2 diabetes is where your body has a hard time processing your blood sugar. That might mean because you need extra support with things like exercise and diet or medication. And then we have gestational diabetes, which is sometimes when people are pregnant, the body has a hard time using the blood sugar that's needed to support the pregnancy. So sometimes people have gestational diabetes just until they give birth, sometimes until a little bit after. And then there's pre-diabetes. Like I said, again, diabetes is complicated, so bear with me, everyone. Pre-diabetes is right before we think you have full type 2 diabetes. There's that period of, maybe we caught it early on enough to say, hey, like, we smell smoke, but there might not be fire. There's some signs here, and let's work together to see if we can lower your risk before it's a full type 2 diagnosis.
Thank you. There's a lot of comments talking about diet and diabetes, and it's certainly also a preconception in certain aspects. Maybe Sanjana, if you would like to talk to that. What do we know about the role of diet and diabetes?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we know that diet, physical activity, maintaining a healthy body weight, these all reduce your risk of type 2 diabetes. As Lindsay has stressed, type 1 diabetes is not preventable, but type 2. And it also plays a really important role in the management of diabetes, and can be a positive factor in managing your diabetes and in preventing complications that can develop in the long term and down the line. There are also, as you mentioned, misconceptions, that people living with diabetes just cannot have sugar at all, and that is not true. You are able to have sugar as part of, a balanced overall holistic diet. Yeah, so maybe I'll pause there, and I'm sure Lindsay and Manadeep would like to
Actually,
contribute.
what I tell to my patient is, there is no concept called diabetic diet. You can have everything, but the portion control, the calorie restriction, and you have to take care of how much carbohydrates you are taking, and along with the other macronutrients, means the proteins and the fats and all. But regarding carbohydrates, we have to be careful. I tell my patients, you can have a dessert today, but provided you are not supposed to eat the rice or the chapatis. So, but you can have to. And the patients are asking, doctor, can I take honey? Can I take jaggery? Can I take sugar free and all? I said, everything you have, provided the calorie is restricted. The calorie containment is very important, and the portion control. food needs to be palatable as well. Otherwise, the studies have shown that too much stringent diet has become counterproductive. So the food needs to be palatable, and at the same time, the calorie restrictions. So what is my total calorie intake? And I could divide it into the three principal meals: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And accordingly, if I want to have this, which are maybe contraindicated as per the diabetic diet, we can have. So, even the studies have shown that this liberal eating with the restricted calorie intake has got enormous patient's treatment satisfaction when it is compared with the diet which is very stringent and non-palatable.
And I'll just say that diet and food is so much more than eating to stay alive and eating because you're hungry. Food is culture, food is history, food is legacy, food is family, food is joy. And it's really important that anyone with diabetes is not punished by taking away culture, joy, and family connection. There are always ways to make modifications and balanced choices in the food and the diet that we eat, or even the time that we eat it, in a way that doesn't rob us of opportunities to continue practicing our culture, to continue connecting with our family, our loved ones, and our community in a healthy way.
Thank you. I think that's a good point. And we struck a nerve also on social media because a lot of people are asking questions about what am I allowed to eat? Can I eat sugar, carbohydrates, etc.? So it's good that we reiterate these points. But we've seen in the discussion also that there's a lot of misconception, misinformation, unknown things about diabetes. I wanted to ask Manodip, in your experience, what could we do to improve the way that we talk about diabetes so that maybe next year at the next World Diabetes Day, we don't talk about these preconceptions and misinformations anymore? What has to change?
Well, it's really a difficult task, but we can keep on trying. Whatever the points I have mentioned, that is the diabetes self-management education and support, which in our country, specifically in India, it is absolutely missing. So proper and right information to the right patients on right time, and then the role of the diabetes educators. And what I believe nowadays, because the staggering number of diabetes patients and which is exponentially increasing years after years, what I believe that we have to educate more the non-diabetics also along with the educations of the diabetics, because these non-diabetics may be a strong family member of a family which is having a strong family history of diabetes. This non-diabetic, even he or she doesn't know that he or she is already diabetic or not, because the study says that 50% of the diabetic patients are not even aware that they are diabetic. So, and even this pre-diabetes individual who is supposed to be non-diabetic is basically a pre-diabetic. So therefore, more knowledge disseminations to be focused on the educating the non-diabetics along with the educations of the people with the diabetic. I think eventually we'll be able to curtail this cycle of pre-diabetes more than the diabetes. We have to reach the reverse. The pre-diabetes should be less than the diabetes. Then only we can come to a plateau. Otherwise, it is climbing up.
Yeah.
I agree. And if I could just jump in there and just say that I think of a lot of it for my context. We work with a lot of Indigenous communities here in Canada. Their risk of diabetes is so much higher than non-Indigenous folks here in Canada. And to Amanadip's point, I'm thinking about like also their culture and their family structure and the teachers and the wisdom keepers that are built in to their everyday functions that share knowledge and wisdom and advice outside of diabetes. What would it look like if we also educated the wisdom keepers and teachers that are built into each of our lives and communities about diabetes? And I think that's really important because I think the theme this year is bridging gaps, breaking barriers.
Yeah.
And the first step to bridging gaps and breaking barriers is to attend a live like this. And maybe you Google after this what gestational diabetes is or how insulin was discovered. And maybe your second step is that you bring someone next year or to the next event that doesn't have diabetes, maybe your neighbor or the teacher in your family bubble, because that's how we start to educate everyone in our community. We have to start first with awareness.
That's absolutely great points. And if you would like to know more about diabetes, you're welcome to visit our website, who.int, and you go to the health topic page, diabetes, where you'll find loads of information. But Lindsay, you touched upon a great point. You working with people who are living with diabetes. Is there anything, I'm sure there's lots of things that you've learned from them. Is there anything that you would like to share that you have learned in your work? Maybe how they improve or maintain their physical, mental health? What are some tips that you would like to share?
Well, I always say that the key to physical health with diabetes is actually taking care of your mental health first. It's the invisible burdens that we all carry that can be the hardest and the heaviest to hold and make it hard for us to go on a walk or to go on a bike ride or a dance class. And if there's one thing that not only I've learned, but I'm reminded of every single day in my work, is that community is everything in diabetes. And community can mean many things. The tip that I always tell people is if you have diabetes and you get diagnosed, go onto Facebook, type diabetes group and the place that you're living in. I can almost guarantee you that there will be some sort of Facebook group or group chat or support organization that exists. I'll let you know that, again, a lot of these support groups or chats or programs, not all of them are evidence-based. So you have to always practice good judgment and discernment. But when I say to people, find support, it's not for the evidence. It's really for the friend. It's for the person where you don't have to explain what you're feeling because they just understand what it's like. And you can understand them as well. And it's to feel normalized. I think we talk a lot about preconceptions and stigma, in other words. The opposite of that is normalization. It's feeling like you fit in. And when you find community in your diabetes, I think that's the superpower in combating the preconceptions. It's you feel normal for just one moment when you have a friend that also lives with diabetes like you do as well.
That's great. I couldn't wrap up this live any better than with these words from you. I think you speak out of the heart of a lot of people. I would like to say thank you so much to Lindsay, Manodeep, and Sanjana for joining the live today. Again, if you have any questions or you're curious about diabetes, please visit our website, who.int, have a look at the diabetes pages. And this was our live today. Until next time, stay healthy and goodbye.
Goodbye.